social change, building a movement with social media. Social media is an essential tool in my personal and professional life. Hi, my name is Maria Ibanez, and I am the Vice President of Communications at CHCI. On behalf of CHCI, I would like to thank Facebook, Twitter, and Google for their support of this session. Social media has set the world on fire. Time spent on social media has increased over the last few years. In fact, we are investing more and more of our time being online on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. By 2021, more than 3 billion people are expected to be on social media. The impact of social media on our lives is undeniable. Digital social movements compete to shape public opinion in the pursuit of social change. The rise of hashtags like Black Lives Matter and Me Too have sparked debates as to whether or not social media is an effective tool for American political organizing. During this session, you will hear from our panelists on how social media platforms can be leveraged as a tool for 2020 leaders. To help us moderate this exciting panel, we are thrilled to have journalist and author Alexis Madrigal lead this discussion. Alexis is a staff writer at The Atlantic and the author of Powering the Dream, The History and Promise of Green Technology. He is a senior editor and the co-founder of the COVID Tracking Project, a volunteer organization launched from The Atlantic and dedicated to collecting and publishing the data required to understand the COVID-19 outbreak in the U.S. As a technology writer and deputy editor of TheAtlantic.com, Alexis helped to shape the magazine's digital culture. Previously, he was the editor-in-chief of Fusion and a staff writer at Wired. While at Wired.com, he built Wired Science into one of the most popular blogs in the world. He's a founder of Longshot Magazine, a high-speed media experiment that garnered attention from the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the BBC. Alexis is a visiting scholar at University of California, Berkeley's Office for the History of Science and Technology. I hope you enjoy this session, and please don't forget to continue the conversation on social media using hashtag CHCIHHM20.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Alexis. Thank you for that introduction and for providing me the opportunity to actually put on a suit today. We need to take every opportunity we can get during this pandemic. Just want to remind you of the CHCI conference hashtag CHCIHHM20. And you're going to be submitting some questions for this panel in the Q&A platform Slido. You can put any other comments in the chat. We do have a fascinating panel here. We've got activists who work on platforms, and we've got people who work the platforms. I myself, as you heard, have spent a lot of my career trying to figure out the dynamics of social platforms and social change. And this session will focus on some of the practical parts of that activism and social media, and dig a bit into the complexities that have really emerged as Twitter and Facebook have become really mainstream political tools. I want to introduce you to our panelists first, though. And I'm just going to go the way I see the video. So here we go. First up, we have Ramon Cruz. He has over 20 years experience in the intersecting fields of sustainability, environmental policy, urban planning, energy, and climate change. And in May of 2020, he was elected president of the Sierra Club. We all know it, old, large environmental organization. And I think we're all very excited to see someone who's been a champion for environmental justice sitting in that seat, this organization that's headquartered in Oakland, where I am joining you from. Next up, we have Amelia Gutierrez. She's an outreach manager, politics and government at Facebook, an experienced organizer, a campaign strategist. She's got 10 years of online and grassroots movement building, and she's managed domestic and global campaigns, ranging from voting rights to international human rights abuses. And she has in-depth expertise managing a diverse portfolio of different things there at Facebook. Next, we have Jason He's a CHCI alumnus and vice president for communications at Leadership for Educational Equity, which is a network of civic leaders that's working to end injustice, the injustice of educational inequity. He's a lawyer, got his JD from SUNY Buffalo, and also served as a senior fellow at Rutgers University School of Communication and Information. Reggie McCrimmon is a senior public policy associate at Twitter. He works directly with Congress, civil rights groups, civil society on a variety of issues, including workforce diversity and inclusion, online hate and abuse, and advertising policy. He also supports Twitter's work on civic engagement and integrity. And he previously worked in government relations and spent time on the Hill working with the Congressional Black Caucus and serving as the president of the Congressional Black Associates. Kathy Cano Murillo is an author, artist, and founder of the award-winning brand Crafty Chica. She also is clearly winning the Room Raider Award here, as you can see. She's the gospel of glitter through her DIY projects and through her speeches, workshops, books, and essays. She's a former syndicated columnist for the Arizona Republic, and she's now a full-time entrepreneur doing collabs with big brands. She's Mexican-American, native of Phoenix, mom of two, and owner of 3 Chihuahuas. My father would be jealous. Thank you all for joining us. I want to go kind of in the reverse order here and just ask you each sort of how your particular work has intersected with social change on the internet. And we'll just go really quickly, just so people can kind of get a sense of where you're coming from in this space. So Kathy, let's start with you.
Oh, definitely. Well, my brand is very lifestyle. It's about positivity. So when it comes to happening for social good, I'm very transparent. I'm honest about why these issues are important to me. And I'm sure important. I like to fact check everything that I read that I want to share and just really be authentic about it. I feel like I want to create conversations with people who maybe are afraid to talk about these issues or shy. And I want to feel like, hey, I can bring this up. It's a safe space. Let's talk about these issues and use our platform for good to educate and inspire and empower each other. And yes, I do a lot of craft. That's kind of like the way to get in to have conversations.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kathy, so much. Reggie, why don't we go to you? I know your work at Twitter probably encounters a lot of social activism. So tell us a little bit about your approach to it.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, and appreciate everyone for being here, and thanks to CHCI for this opportunity. You know, on Twitter, we like to say that it's not just look at me platform, but a very much so look at this platform. I think even in my trajectory on getting to Twitter, I often use the service to find out what's happening, right? Like what's happening nearby. What are people saying about the policies that we are working on? When I was on the Hill, what's the feedback that we can get and learn? How can we engage directly? And that's really been my experience so far. And I think I just add that I think one of the best things, which I think we'll hopefully talk about on this panel with all of the different activists here, is that it really gives us an opportunity to listen and learn from each other, and then also empower those to mobilize the change that they want to see. And so that's what drew me to Twitter. That's what continues to drive a lot of the work that we do every day within our public policy team.
Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. My name is Jason Jordans. I wake up every day at Leadership for Educational Equity. We are a network of civic leaders, including about 50,000 people with direct experiences with inequity. And our job is to inspire them to actually go take action, which is even harder during COVID-19. Our job is to inspire folks to find a leadership pathway, go run for office, go be the change in your community, go organize in your community, go change the laws so that every child everywhere has access to an equitable education. And to get there, we know that there are massive numbers of injustices, from immigration to the criminal justice system, environmental policy that have to change in order for every child and every family to have access to what any of us would envision as an equitable education and experience of life. As part of this conversation, two things that are top of my mind. I think the issues of our time are cynicism and truth when it comes to social media. We live in a time when we look at the youth vote, people 18 to 24, voting and registering to vote is going down. Latinos and Asian American young people are the least likely, but despite immigration status, to actually register and vote. And that has a trickle down effect when it comes to actually engaging with the process. I think cynicism, fighting cynicism, and engaging people in the idea that we can actually change the system and make change, and also this idea of truth, knowing where we can actually find truth and find facts, as opposed to just believing that nothing is reliable on the internet, I think are the two big things that face us as people.
I got some good questions for that coming up, and I'm sure Amelia and Facebook more broadly also have have engaged with some of these issues. Tell us a little bit about, you kind of have two pieces, right? You now are in this corporate environment, but you started out as an organizer. So why don't you just narrate a little bit of how you decided to go to Facebook?
Absolutely. And thanks so much, Alexis. I just wanted to thank CHCI, and I can't think of a better way to start off Hispanic Heritage Month than to be with everyone on this panel. At Facebook, as you mentioned, Alexis, I work on our team that supports advocacy organizations who are really using Facebook's tools and products to build communities, to bring people closer together, and of course, to advocate for change. For me, it's really a dream. My personal experience has been the last 10 years working for several different nonprofits and advocacy organizations, ranging from international human rights work to immigration reform, and really in those roles, thinking about how we use social media, how we use online tools, how we kind of organize in this not new anymore, but what was once considered a new way to basically do the same thing and bring people together. So for me, it's a really great fit, and I love being able to work with organizations, especially like Sierra Club, who we have on today, to help bring the tools to life that are available on our platform. So excited to be here and to chat with all of you.
Cool. Ramon, I wanted to ask you about the impact that social media has had on the environmental movement. You lead this organization, which is old guard, and it seems not unrelated that the sort of rise of environmental justice as a cause, like sort of within Sierra Club, feels a little bit to me linked to the idea that more people have a voice in that organization now than because of the broadening of the public conversation that has resulted on Twitter and Facebook, but maybe that's wrong. So why don't you tell us how you see the interaction between these social platforms and the environmental movement?
Well, thanks, Alexis, and thanks also for the invitation to be part of this panel. In terms of the impact of social media in the environmental movement, it's of course huge, as is with any field these days. I would speak in terms of our organization. Social media is very important part of our digital and communication strategy. As the largest grassroots environmental organization in the country, made up of not just staff, but also volunteers and chapter staff in every state, we use social media not just as a way to stay, in touch with our external community, but also to build our brand internally. And what this means is creating, lots and beautiful social media, share graphics and pieces of online content that it's part of our strategy. Our staff and volunteers are also our ambassadors and are proud to share Sierra Club content with their networks and families and friends. We're proud of a strong and committed base, and we know that we have a lot of work to do to reach new communities and folks who may not currently see themselves in our world and work. So overwhelmingly, I would say young people and communities of color are online and using social media to get information, to organize, to advocate. So we have to create a program that welcomes them into our organization and our movement. The organization and the digital team is constantly learning from Black and brown content creators online, and we see our roles to basically amplify those voices. So, I mean, I could go on and on, of course, on how we do this, but I guess I'll stop there to continue the panel.
No, luckily, we'll get to. So that's fun. Jason, I was struck by something you said, which is that you essentially want to get people to go do things out in the world. You want them to go make change, and you feel like you're battling cynicism. What do you actually post, on Twitter or on Facebook that actually can do that? I mean, or is it really more of a larger strategy of wrapping people into a community? I mean, is it really about like you're thinking when you get up, like, okay, if I put up this picture, we'll knock off like 2 more people into the doing something bucket? Or is it really more that you've kind of tried to design a strategy of like wrapping people deeper and deeper into your organizing efforts?
Yeah. One of the things we're starting to learn is what types of content at what we consider top of funnel. Is it the podcast we just launched, for example, telling the stories of people of color, women that look like our membership that have actually run for office or gone and done things in civic leadership? Is that the thing that will light the fire or light the pathway? We constantly experiment with types of content on Facebook, on Twitter, videos, stories that we share with our members in order to inspire them to come have a conversation with us and find a leadership pathway. So that for us, social media definitely is top of funnel, right? And then we want to bring folks closer to the leadership coaches on staff to come engage with the courses and to be in our even private social community. Amelia, you'll love to know that we use Workplace for Good across lots of different programs. We find more and more that leaders, not just young leaders, but leaders generally, even our more senior leaders who are serving on school boards across the country, want community, and they want social media that serves them very, very personally for their leadership, and very, very privately allows them to create the connections and do the sharing that they might feel otherwise like they can't do in a more public platform.
Kathy, I want to go to you to ask, as someone who is, working, on your art, working on your craft, and is, it's not necessarily, heading like a big organization, but you're working on your own art and field. How do you decide how to sort of optimize your presence? Like what signals do you look for to say like, okay, this is really connecting with people, or this isn't?
Well, it's funny because years ago, I had made a decision that I only wanted it to be about creativity. And I realized that there's so much going on in the world. I want to use this platform for good because I'm not a machine pumping out content. These are issues that affect me as a mom, as a community member, as a Latina. And I know that these women who follow me are in the same situation as I am. We're concerned about the same things. We have the same fears, the same, a lot of the same dreams. And by talking about it, and most importantly, talking about why a specific issue is important to me, and then asking them how they feel about it, it just starts this meaningful dialogue that inspires them to want to make a change as well, to maybe, talk to their neighbor, ask questions, go beyond the obvious. And I love that one-to-one kind of thing. And I love when I'll post something that's kind of scary but meaningful and important to me, and someone will message me back. I'll send them a voice memo to talk to them. And then next thing you know, we're connected, and then they're inspired to go make a difference. And I think that's the best thing we could do, is just really listen to each other and then match up what we know, again, with facts, definitely facts that are, fact check, that we have links that we can share instead of just posting stuff out there. Look at this, look at this, look at this. You want to, I look at it like, you look at this and this is why it's important to me. People come back with, talk about it. Maybe we all walk away learning something from each other. I really take it on a lot deeper level now to balance it organically. Today I posted something about a fundraiser for farm workers, and I put a recipe for how to make edible glitter donuts that they can make to watch this, live fundraiser. So it's marrying the two concepts together in an authentic way.
I want to turn to the platform folks for a second, just because it's a few threads that the three activists have sort of brought up. I mean, one is, obviously all three of our activists here want to use these platforms to tell their stories and to build their movements. But everyone's also brought up, facts and the desire for themselves and for other people to have accurate information. And these two things are actually, the world is a complex place, and they can be in tension with each other at times. And so I'm curious from each of you, and I guess we'll start with Amelia here. I'm curious how you think about your responsibility within that. And I have one more specific question after that, but I'm just curious how you think about balancing building tools that allow people to build social movements and social change, some of which may come from outside the mainstream, as well as protecting users from conspiracy theories and other sort of fringe, bad or like literally dangerous information.
Yeah, absolutely, Alexis. And I'm really glad you asked that, because I think, for all of us here, of course, we're always trying to balance these very different things, as you mentioned. So I think at Facebook, one of the things that we think about is, on one hand, how do you create a space where people can bring their true, authentic selves, voice things that they care about, even if they disagree with other people, have those meaningful and important and sometimes hard conversations, with the other side, which is, where do we keep people safe and make sure this is a platform that people feel that they can bring their authentic selves to. So one of the things that I'm sure folks on the call are familiar with, and if not, I'm happy to mention it, is we do have our fact-checking program. It's something that Facebook has invested in over the past couple of years. This is a program of external fact checkers. They're part of an international consortium of fact checkers that really, with the main goal in mind, to fact check content on our platform. So I think that's one avenue that I would definitely speak to. And then in terms of the election, one piece that I really want to highlight is just last month, I think exactly a month ago, we launched our Voter Information Center. I don't know if folks on the call or on the screen have seen it. You've probably been very much trying to promote it. It shows up top in feed on Facebook and on Instagram. Jason, I see you nodding. And this is really designed to be a one-stop shop where people can get accurate information and really ask questions that they have about voting. Also do things like register, find out about vote by mail. And so I think this is one way that we're really trying to ensure that people who have questions about voting are able to get that accurate information. We know that, of course, under any election, information about voting is very confusing. It's different state by state, but of course, this year, I think it's even more important. So yeah, if people haven't seen it, I definitely would encourage you to take a look at that. It's the Voting Information Center, and you can easily find it on Facebook and find that accurate election information.
Of course, the U.S. has chosen to have this confusing way of voting. Largely
very true. Absolutely.
So it's like, it's one of those things where you're like, didn't have to be like this.
No.
Yeah. Reggie, how about you? It's obviously, the tools are actually quite similar and have grown more similar through time, I think, actually. But the cast of the service is quite different. So how do you all, Twitter this is an overused quote, but way back in the day, Twitter used to call itself the free speech wing of the free speech party, or at least a important person at Twitter said this. How do you see that now? Do you think that is still largely the case, or do you think that you have evolved to a kind of different ideology of content moderation?
Yeah, no, we like to say, and we believe that Twitter, we're here to serve the public conversation. And we believe that people on Twitter shape what's happening. They drive the conversation, they drive the culture, and they have real impact in the world on and off our platform. And we can't emphasize enough, especially right now, that health is our top priority. And the action that we have taken and been taken over the past few months, we continue to demonstrate that health is our top priority. One of the most interesting things about our service and about my job particularly is not just doing the policy work, but also doing the philanthropy work and working to elevate audiences and elevate voices with authentic, organic content where people can find the right information. Another thing we implemented, and I'm excited about covering some of our media literacy, we're researching what if we prompted individuals before they share an article that they might see. Have you read this article yet? And seeing what the response would be to that. Would there be would that prompt individuals to read the article and expand, really putting the power in the hands of the people as they continue to drive the conversation. So we see our role in serving the public conversation and helping in areas dealing with media literacy, with also elevating and supporting authentic and really important voices on the platform, and continue to listen to them as they continue to shape real world impact on and off the platform.
Audience out there, you should submit some questions. Slido is the platform of choice that goes here to my phone. So when we get to questions in a little bit, we will have them. I wanted to give our activists here a chance to suggest something to our platforms here that would improve their ability to do the kind of organizing that they do. It's not often you just get, two platform people in here. You can say, it would be really nice. So Ramon, why don't we start off with you? What would help you at the Sierra Club for Facebook and Twitter to do?
Well, as I guess, in terms of our, our motive, it's as policy influencers. We use social media to amplify our message, and certainly some issues, are influenced. Let's see, how should I? Okay, well, being a national grassroots organization with 64 chapters around the nation and offices in every state, we have the potential to influence policy issues, national level, very local issues as well. So sometimes, the difficulty is how to within the 24 news cycle, from those to disaster, then, through social media, we can definitely inform abroad, but sometimes challenge, to basically go, from those big issues to local ones, and to sort of keep them all connected, and so a big, I guess in our teams would be, how to keep people informed and engaged, and also, so that's a way that I don't know how the algorithms work. I would say also that we often, after our corporate targets, which are very concerned, about their brand and public image. So it's something that we use a lot, from McDonald's being the largest user of palm oil to Wells Fargo on fossil fuel divestments, or pressuring Uber, Lyft to electrify their fleet of ride-sharing cars. It would be great to be able to sort of coordinate those message and content better, so that it's right on target, so we can affect our influence in the best way possible. So yeah, in that way, I mean, we use social media for that, but it would be much better if we can really figure out ways of doing that better.
I think what I will draw from that comment too is that, oftentimes people talk about how context gets left out of like a lot of things that move around online, and I think that it's really true. I mean, as long as my career has gone reporting on these things for the last 15 years, it's like the context for a story used to be like a magazine or a news program, and now it's just the clip, right? And everybody kind of like designs around just like, oh, just that one story, that one clip, that one video, that one image. And I think that those sort of networks of context that exist around these things, they're hard to see. You have to dig, and it's so much easier to just see like sort of the one atomic unit content, the entire sort of set of things, so that when you see, a birder have an encounter in Central Park that's racist, you can sort of connect it to this broader set of topics about, safety of Black bodies in public spaces, and also the environmental movement and all these things, right? Ideally, those things would all be, and the history of anti-Blackness in America, and like that would all kind of be there for you in some way. And I kind of wish that hashtags had turned into that rather than kind of more like a volume game. And sometimes it works that way, like particularly around the fires that we're having here in California, to note another awful environmental issue right now. It actually has worked like that. Jason, how about you? How would you, what tweak would you make to the platforms here? I mean, you sound like a heavy user of some of the different group tools that exist for organizing people at a deeper level than, say, the hashtag.
Yeah. Look, the problem that we're trying to solve is so fundamental to the function of America, right? If we look at just elected officials, 51% of the U.S. population are female. Only 31% of elected leaders are female. 40% of the American population are people of color. 11% of all elected are people of color. These create power dynamics, a lack of access to resources. These are the fundamental issues of our time. We're just I think, probably ending a national debate, kind of, sort of, about mail-in voting. And we're not having the conversation about whether or not young people will show up to vote, and how we get them to vote, how we get them to invest in the process, and this thing called America. It's fundamental to our function. So I don't have a tweak ask, but what I would love, and I say this also with a grain of humility, because I never know what the platforms are actually working on. But my ask would be to adopt this thing called civic leadership, or adopt this thing called civil society, and figure out the investments from a platform side, as in tools to be made available to help people move to action, and the philanthropy side that you can both do yourself and direct others to invest in this thing called civic leadership. The future of America literally depends on young people saying, yes, I believe that if I vote, it matters. And I believe that if I step forward to run for office, I can be the change. And this thing that we battle with cynicism and I think collectivism, this idea that we are all at a heightened sense of anxiety because we're kind of aware. I'm aware of a fire 3,000 feet, 3,000 miles away, but I can't do anything about it. And I'm aware of the challenges to civic society. I'm aware of the things that threaten Black bodies every single day, but I don't know what to do about it. If we can help to drive our thinking and our action toward that, where young people are like, I know what I can do. I can run. I can go be the change. I can organize in my community and make that more real. I think we will actually be moving our society forward. That is it's not a tweak ask. It's probably a much bigger ask, but that is the thing that I would most like to invite Twitter, Facebook, and every other of the platform companies to be a part of, and come talk to us if you like, to see how, what we could build together. We'd love to have that conversation.
Amelia, in the aftermath of the 2016 election, Mark Zuckerberg did in fact put out a letter in which he said, that we need to build infrastructure for civil society, basically. Do you think Facebook has delivered on that? Now that we're coming up on almost 4 years later.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think one of the things that Facebook will always say is that this is a job that will never be done, right? I mean, a lot of this is something that is just constantly evolving. And I can tell you that even at my short time at Facebook, I do feel like every day I'm learning about new processes that we're putting in place, new teams that we're building, just this constant evolution of work. That is going towards this goal that, that always will change and iterate. And that's just kind of the nature of it. But I will say that I think some of the things that are different is, we do have about 35,000 people worldwide who are focused on election integrity. I think a lot of people think that, we're working on elections in the 6 months up to 2020. But the reality is that, this is something that we've been working on for the past 4 years, as you've noted, even kind of getting into gear with the primaries earlier this year. So I think there's a lot of that is happening. I think also the other big thing that's kind of interesting about 2020 is that, not only are we thinking about an election, but we're also have the census, right? And we kind of, let's just throw that into the mix with COVID and with another thing in 2020. And so I've been able to be involved with our work around the census, and it has been really exciting to see Facebook take a role in what that looks like in terms of partnering with the census, doing promotions on the top of our feed on Instagram and on Facebook to make sure that people know about the census, know how to get counted, get directed to the census resources. So, I think that all of those things make a really big difference. As I mentioned before, I talked a little bit about our voting information center, but we estimate that over 160 million people will see that content, will be able to get connected with those resources. So yeah, I think so. Obviously, I wasn't around during 2016 and only recently started with Facebook, but I do know that it's an incredible opportunity for the platform. It's a very, very high priority, and it's something that's kind of interwoven into everything that we've been doing.
Yeah. Amelia and sorry, go ahead, Kathy. Yeah, totally.
Alexa, stop. Sorry, I'm talking. Okay, I have a wish list for Twitter, and because there's so much like traumatic headlines that are going on, it feels like we're bombarded with so much heavy news. Our spirits, our emotions need to take a breath and exhale. You know what I would love on Twitter? At the top of the search, where it has like for you, trending, entertainment, sports. I wish there was one that was good news. And it's just all of the
you'd click on it right now, it'd just be empty.
But we have to find those things, we have to find hope. We need to see facts of hope, that good things that are going on out there, because we're talking about our kids and our grandkids, and it is traumatic to hear these headlines and want to make a difference and feeling helpless. And we're doing these steps, big and small, but to have something like that where you can go and just take a breather. And I think that's why people are addicted so much, because it's just an escapism of happy for a few minutes to go on and see the good things that people are doing. So that's my wish that I'll put out to Twitter.
Thank you, Kathy.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, actually,
all of that.
Yeah, no, that slides in perfectly to our first user question from Nina. She actually identified the same problem you did, Kathy, which is that users have reported on the negative effects of doom scrolling, which a new word for the year, where you just sit there looking at all the terrible things that are happening, but you kind of can't stop. So Nina asked, how can platforms empower people to take care of their mental health while they are, seeing, as Kathy noted, so many tough headlines?
Yeah, this is.
I'll start with you, Ray.
Yeah, one of my favorite features most recently, and for the past 2 months, we've done a lot of listening, especially to many of the activists who have been on the ground, proximate to many of the issues and the victims that we are currently still thinking about every day in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement. And one thing that I always try to end my call with is a support for mental health and rest. And I had a tweet pinned, at least for the past 2 months, that was a moment that we created on Twitter where we highlighted and talked about mental health awareness. And we pulled in researchers and academics and health professionals. And we created a moment around Black Lives Matter. And when I say a moment, it's exactly what you mentioned, Alexis, earlier, about if you click on that hashtag, what do you see? And we're moving more to providing greater context, greater views of the story, but also offering some resources that could be helpful to during this time. And so I would recommend that. I would also recommend what I use right now. If I go to my home screen, of course I have my home feed, but when I swipe over to the right, I'm able to pin different topics that I'm interested in. And so I pin sports. The fact that the NBA is back, to me, has been huge for my mental health in the past month. And so I pin sports, and I try to make sure that Shannon Sharp is at the top of my feed when I'm going through, because he's hilarious to me, and I'm a Lakers fan, and it's a good time for us right now. And so I'm able to pin that topic to the top of my timeline, and I'm able to just swipe over to that on my timeline instead of looking just at my home screen of everything. I'm also able to make a list where I can put people in accounts who make me happy, make me smile, into one list, and I can go through and I can follow them. And I can set notifications for each of those profiles so that every time a tweet comes in, one of my favorite from the summer was Chicago Mayor when she tweeted out, "Your jump shot's always going to be weak. Stay at home." During COVID, I thought it was hilarious. And I started creating alerts for when she would tweet something out so I could share it with some of my friends who work in this space in government, but also just shout out her team for how they're able to kind of throw some humor into making sure that people are staying safe around COVID. So those are some of the tools that I'm using on the service, and we're always thinking of ways to make sure people can customize their feed and see what they want. And then we're also supporting mental health awareness and suicide prevention. This is Suicide Prevention Month, and I hope that all of us will engage in that and continue to listen and learn and check in even on all of our strong and strong friends. But these are some of the tools that I use, and hope you will as well.
Cool. Amelia, do you want to add anything to that, or should we go to the next one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think Facebook has a lot of similar tools, and of course, we're all familiar with the doom scrolling, as you put it, both kind of as a theoretical and also as a very deeply personal. We all use these platforms. I follow advocacy organizations, and a lot of it is really challenging. So some of the things that we've done is, yes, for Mental Health Awareness Month, we put out mental health guides. So we partnered with a number of experts in the field outside of Facebook, expert organizations, to really put together these guides that are meant to be curated content that is supposed to be helpful and resourceful to people. Some of the other things that we've done is, I don't know if everyone has seen, but we launched a COVID hub earlier this year. So this was a place to, at first, started to just get really accurate information, get the top updates. We partnered with the World Health Organization to do that. That quickly evolved also to creating a wellness hub, a wellness center within that. Another place to share resources, to get support, and then also a place where you can adjust your settings or kind of do some sort of self-management pieces, things like putting timers on how much social media you're on or how much you're on the platform, also as a way to help mitigate and think about mental health. But absolutely, I mean, before coming to Facebook, I worked at Amnesty International, and unfortunately, there's a lot of doom, a lot of challenges. So one of the things that I see organizations do really well is really lean into that space. And, I've seen a lot of Latinx organizations say, you know what, we're not experts in mental health, but we know that mental health affects our community. And so that's something that we need to be thinking about, something we need to be communicating about. I think also coming from an advocacy space, there's always that urgency, and there's always that need to be asking our people to do something and to mobilize, and there's one crisis after another. And so I've just seen really, really great work by advocacy organizations to recognize that that's a really big piece of what they do, but at the same time being receptive and understanding of their community in a way where mental health really has to be front and center when we're talking about movement building for the long haul.
I mean, I do think one of the hardest things, though, is like it is baked into how all the platforms work that you need people to be using the service. And so it's like I think it's a really tough thing to ask the platforms, though a necessary thing, to basically to work against, in some ways, their corporate interests, or at least their short-term corporate interests. And so one of the most interesting things that I feel like I've seen in my reporting through time on this is just the way that people inside a lot of these companies have tried to make the argument it's in the long-term interests of a Facebook or a Twitter or even, a Pinterest or whomever, to have people use the service maybe a little bit less in the short term, so that they kind of don't get like just burned out by this over time. And it's been, I think for those who haven't maybe been as close to these companies, a lot of the debates that go on outside between all of us, how much joy should there be on the feed, are clearly also things that are internal tensions as well. Ramon, from the audience, which is, what does the future of movement building and community look like on social media for your particular organization?
Can you repeat the question, Alexis, please?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was, what does the future of movement building and community look like for Sierra Club?
Well, the Sierra Club has been, especially, for a number of years, we have been, putting equity, inclusion, and justice at the center of what we are, of everything we do. And so, of course, our social media and digital strategies reflect that. It's something that of course that we're also very, very proud of, in terms of taking that challenge of making that shift, and the type of content that we're putting out, especially over the last few years, as the environmental space has really been called in, into this part of this bigger progressive movement. So our movement partners, for example, are asking us, to use the power of our network and our financial resources and our brand to support them as well. So, if you have been following the Sierra Club, in the last few years on Instagram, on Twitter, you could notice that, one of our practices is to highlight our community and connect issues locally. So, we're in terms of, for example, recently, thinking on after the murder of George Floyd, and the movement for Black Lives. We have been very active in terms of amplifying the voice for those other ones. So for those other organizations that might not have, as big of an outreach or an audience as we have. So in that way, we're trying to become much better partners with a myriad of organizations all over the country and all over the world as well, to use our platform for that matter.
Yeah, Kathy, how about you? How do you think about building community for yourself on platforms right now?
Well, I look at each platform as its own community. I really pay attention to the personality of the people on that platform, and I feel like I'm there to serve them, of what's important to them. And I love social media. I love going on and connecting with people and exchanging ideas and learning from each other, inspiring each other. So I'm always in growth mindset. And I do things like on Facebook, I have a private Facebook group where we can share ideas for small business owners. And on my Facebook page, it's more people who are like, just give me a craft project for the weekend. And then on Instagram, there's other groups where we're talking about different activism events that are going on. And during COVID, the mask making, a lot of women, they needed to make masks, and they were using bed sheets and cutting them up. How do I sew a mask? I'm like, okay, stay tuned. Tonight I'll have a tutorial for you. So it was just a way to take what we know and learn and exchange it with each other. And so I'm all for it. Each one is different, and I love to adapt to what's important to them. as long as it aligns with my ethics and what's important to me too, so that we're growing together.
Your communities sound delightful, Kathy, I have to say. We have about 5 minutes left here, and I want to get to a couple more of the questions. One of them is I think raises some complicated questions from Marina. In your work, have you found that storytelling has become a more effective way of building movements rather than building by using facts and numbers? And I would just be interested to hear how you would answer this, Jason, and then I may have a follow-up. Oh, I'm muted. Or we lost your audio.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. That had to happen once. Oh, absolutely. I think we see it in the policy space. And it's always been the case that people learn, they're inspired, and they take action because of stories. We can beat people over the head with facts day after day after day, but it's stories that actually move the heart, and I think give us the inspiration to take action on just about anything. So, and also just we're in the attention economy, right? We are competing for nanoseconds of attention from people kind of scrolling all day long. So our storytelling is, I think, key to everything about the way that we will or won't be successful on social platforms.
Yeah. I mean, here's the sort of complicated question I think this raises, which is the things that Facebook and Twitter get most criticized for, and even doom scrolling, all this stuff, is basically people optimizing around stories that get emotional traction. And so you have everybody kind of in that attention economy, kind of like racing around out optimizing each other to drive different emotional reactions, because emotional reactions drive engagement. Engagement drives all the actual things that activists and companies and other people want. And something that I've always wondered is whether we should just be kind of turning down the dial. Like, I think sometimes we forget like how constructed the attention economy is. This economy is not something that just sort of like exists like physical forces. Like it's built out of the tools that Reggie and Amelia's companies have built. And the question where I want to take this is, and we'll start with Reggie, is what is the thing that when you were outside Twitter, just like doing politics or whatever, you didn't understand about sort of how Twitter worked internally or how these tech companies work internally? And Amelia, it's going to be the same question for you. So kind of when you move from the outside to the inside, what's the thing where you were like, oh, that's why this works like this, or this is the thing I didn't understand?
That's a really good question. I think when I first came in, it was astounding, and it was also encouraging to meet so many people with different backgrounds who are social scientists, who are engineers, who are civil rights advocates and former civil society advocates, and even some former elected officials, all who are going in and taking their perspectives and coming together to build here and continuing to work on product enhancements and changes that are based on research, that are based on understanding behavior, and also the humility of our executives that's demonstrated every day to listen and learn. I think we talked and Jack did a podcast on the Daily a couple weeks ago where he talked about this, about some of the early days and what we might have incentivized in the early days of building the product, and how are we listening and learning and researching and bringing people on the team who can continue to help us think about how we're building around this moving forward. And so I would say those things: the amount of people we have and the humility we take to listen and learn from our mistakes and get this right moving forward.
I think I'll just add one small thing that I've heard from a lot of people at technology companies, which is just that, like, if you're looking at that global view that you all have of all of this user behavior, it is actually extremely different. I think it's not something that it's actually easy to imagine. It's like this real-time dashboard of like all this behavior, and we all see it obviously through our own particular little porthole, but you all have certain statistics that allow you to see, oh, when this happened, then that happened, and that view is in fact like, it's unique. Amelia, how about you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alexis. I think for me, coming from the nonprofit space for so long and coming to a tech company like Facebook, one of the biggest surprises to me was just truly, truly, truly how dynamic the platform is. I feel like I started and there were so many more tools that exist that I didn't even recognize and knew about. Jason, you mentioned you all use Workplace. That's something that is relatively new. We learn so much day to day on how advocacy groups are using not just Facebook and Instagram, but Messenger and WhatsApp, how they're using our donation tools to raise money and to sustain themselves for causes that they care about online. Learning how organizations have adopted an ad strategy that really allows them to be a player and run ads for their audiences in a way that they really wouldn't be able to do for that kind of like low dollar amount on other places. I think for me, it's just kind of made me recognize that people can really create their own experience on the platform. And as Kathy noted, people come for a lot of different reasons. You kind of, have your own community and have your own goals in mind. And so I think that's one of the things that's been really eye-opening is one, just it's so dynamic. There are so many different tools. Two, that it really is so interesting to see how people use it in very different ways, even just across advocacy organizations. And then I would say just lastly that it's always constantly evolving and changing. So a big part of what I do is work with, Ramon's organization and Jason's organization to better understand how people are using it, what they would like to see. And so that's been really helpful and exciting and informative. But yeah, I think I'm just every day I feel like I'm learning something new, which is exciting.
Okay, we have come to the end here. We each get just one quick closing comment, just a few seconds, and maybe it's just direct advice to the activists out there. And Kathy, let's start with you, and then Ramon, you're on deck.
Oh, definitely. So mine is inspired by my daughter, who just gave me a lecture about listening. If we could just take the time to really listen and intake what people are saying instead of immediately thinking what we need to throw at them or solve their problems, just listening, I think that is the first step to learning and growing together.
Beautiful. Ramon?
I would say use these platforms to meet people where they are, and do the work that to figure out where faults are. We use a lot listening to Emilia, for example, talking, there's new ways of trying to personalize that experience. We're sending now articles and people can choose the amount of content that they want to see. So, we're basically using these and learning from these platforms as much as we can.
Beautiful. Amelia?
I would say that, I would just leave people with it. Facebook really is a social media platform. It really is designed to be an experience where you connect with people and you build communities. And so if you're out there and there's a tool that you haven't tried yet, or you're curious about, or you've seen other people using it, I would just encourage you to really to try things out and to engage with people and really think about these platforms. Of course, it's a place to get information and to see what everyone's up to, but really is a place to engage and create that community. And I think especially in COVID times, as we're living in now, that's been, all the more impactful and meaningful.
Cool. Jason and Reggie, you get 1 sentence each.
Just a quick thank you for hosting this great conversation. And for all of us, let's figure out how to turn digital to action.
Cool.
And I will say at Twitter, like I mentioned, health is our top priority and we'll continue. And we believe, actually, as you mentioned earlier, Alexis, that it is tied to our success as a corporation, as a company. And I also would say health is important to activists and all of us who are in the movement and those who have proximity to the issues. So take care of your health. Make sure you're getting enough rest. That is also a form of activism so we can continue to fight. So thanks, everyone, and thanks for having us.
Cool. Thank you all so much. It's a really fascinating mix of people to be talking about these issues. And thank you for all the great questions, everyone, especially Nina, who put in some serious work on her questions. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your conference.